would, turn over to 1 Samuel chapter 17. 1 Samuel 17. We're going to read a story this morning, and you probably think already, hey, we know this story. We know, you say facing the giant, we know what story that is. We're familiar with that story. And it might be an easy time to think, yeah, that's a kid's story. We know that story. Can I tell you that if you actually read this story from Scripture, it's not really a kid's story? Not that kids can't get something from it, but it's got a little bit more grown-up approach to it and what happens here and some of the things that occur in this chapter. Matter of fact, if you made this story into a movie, kids couldn't watch it. They couldn't go, not without you taking them anyway. And I'm not sure I'd recommend it. It's got some gory parts. It's a little bit bloody at some points. David, in fact, sort of the focus of this story, David is going to be a bloody guy. God needs him where he's at and what he's doing, but David's life is going to be so bloody that God's going to end up not allowing him to build the temple. Probably that and a couple of other reasons, but we're going to read some of this story together this morning. Now the Philistines gathered their forces for war and assembled at Socoh in Judah. They pitched camp at Ephes-dammim between Socoh and Azekah. Saul and the Israelites assembled and camped in the valley of Elah and drew up their battle line to meet the Philistines. The Philistines occupied one hill and the Israelites another with a valley between them. This gives you a pretty good picture of what's happening. A champion named Goliath, who was from Gath, came out of the Philistine camp. He was over 9 feet tall. He had a bronze helmet on his head, and he wore a coat of scale armor of bronze, weighing 5,000 shekels. That's about 125 pounds. On his legs he wore bronze greaves, and a bronze javelin was slung on his back. His spear shaft was like a weaver's rod, and its iron point weighed 600 shekels. His shield bearer went ahead of him. The head of his spear was about 15 pounds. So think bowling ball. That's kind of the weight you're talking about. The head of his spear. It is a massive thing. Some people suggest to counteract the weight of the head of that spear, that his spear was probably about 20 feet long. It's a massive guy. Of course, if you're 9 feet tall, a 20-foot spear, you can handle that. He's a fearsome creature, isn't he? I mean, God made this guy. What was God thinking? I mean, wouldn't you give this guy to Israel? But God makes him and he's the enemy. Why does God do that? Well, I think this story is why God does that. But Goliath stood and shouted to the ranks of Israel, "Why do you come out and line up for battle? Am I not a Philistine? And are you not the servants of Saul? Choose a man. Have him come down to me. If he's able to fight and kill me, we will become your subjects. But if I overcome and kill him, you will become our subjects and serve us." And the Philistines said, "This day I defy the ranks of Israel. Give me a man and let us fight each other." On hearing the Philistines' words, Saul and all the Israelites were dismayed and terrified. You've got a stalemate. You've got Israel here. They should be able to advance, but they can't because here's the enemy on the opposite hill. And they've got this giant champion. It doesn't sound like the first time this had happened. They bring this guy out, and he says, "Hey, look, send a guy out. If I can whip him, we get to have you." This is the plan. I think they had probably done this before, and it had always worked. But this time, it's going to turn out a little bit differently. Now, David was the son of an Ephrathite named Jesse, who was from Bethlehem in Judah. Jesse had 8 sons. And in Saul's time, he was old and well advanced in years. Jesse's 3 oldest sons had followed Saul to the war. The firstborn was Eliab, the second Abinadab, the third Shammah. David was the youngest. The 3 oldest followed Saul, but David went back and forth from Saul to tend his father's sheep at Bethlehem. David was tending the sheep. Now, we always talk about David as a kid. I'm going to tell you why I think David was tending the sheep, but we'll get to that in a minute. For 40 days the Philistine came forward every morning and evening and took a stand. And Jesse told his son David, "Take this ephah of roasted grain, 10 loaves of bread for your brothers. Hurry to the camp. Take along these 10 cheeses to the commander of their unit. See how your brothers are, and bring back some assurance from them." There was Saul and all the men of Israel in the valley of Elah fighting against the Philistines. Early in the morning, David left the flock with the shepherd loaded up out and set out as Jesse had directed. He reached the camp as the army was going out to its battle position, shouting the war cry. So they go out with a good show every morning. They go out screaming. Israel and the Philistines were drawing up their lines facing each other. David left his things with the keeper of the supplies, and he ran to the battle lines and greeted his brothers. Sure, he wants to see the excitement. That's the show. You want to go see it. Sure, so he does that. David left his things, and 23. And as he was talking with them, Goliath, the Philistine champion from Gath, stepped out from his lines and shouted his usual defiance, and David heard it. When the Israelites saw the man, they all ran from him in great fear. So as you can imagine, he comes out, and the Israelite lines sort of give way where Goliath comes out. Because nobody wants to get caught in a situation where Goliath thinks he's ready to fight them. Now the Israelites have been saying, do you see how this man keeps coming out? He comes out to defy Israel. The king will give great wealth to the man who kills him. He will also give him his daughter in marriage and will exempt his father's family from taxes in Israel. That's a pretty sweet deal. He says, hey, the guy who will beat him, we'll give him everything. It's going to be good. He doesn't have to pay taxes. That sounds like a good deal. That'd be great if they offered that today, wouldn't it? And then also give you a woman, the king's daughter. Marry into the royal family. Sounds good. David asked the men standing near him, what will be done for the man who kills the Philistine and removes his disgrace from Israel? Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? The different versions read differently on this. But the notion of him calling him an uncircumcised Philistine is that he doesn't worship God. He's a heathen. He said, this man's a heathen. Why are you letting him talk about God this way? Why would you let him say these things? What is wrong with you? Why would you let somebody speak ill of your God? He's upset about it. He's upset, but what is he going to do? He's just one man. They repeated to him what they had been saying and told him, this is what will be done for the man who kills him. He wants to hear about it. Tell me what it is. Tell me what I get if I do this. He hadn't said that yet, but that's where he's going. Then Eliab, David's oldest brother, heard him speaking with the men. He burned with anger at him and asked, why have you come down here? And with whom did you leave those few sheep in the desert? I know how conceited you are and how wicked your heart is. You came down only to watch the battle. You came down here to see us get whipped. That's what he's saying. You're just curious. You're not here to help. Now what have I done? Said David. Can't I even speak? He then turned away to someone else and brought up the same matter. And the men answered him as before. What David said was overheard and reported to Saul, and Saul sent for him. So David is kind of, as the youngest of the brothers, he's kind of puffing his chest out a little bit. What will you do? Who's letting this guy do this? How could you act this way? What's wrong with y'all? And his brothers go, did any of y'all grow up with brothers? Brothers kind of get testy with each other sometimes. We did. And my mom had an easy fix for that. She didn't tell us to stop fighting. She said, go do it where I can't see it. Go ahead, go scrap. I don't care, but I don't want to hear one complaint. If you come back whipped and your lip is bloody, it's your problem, son. Well, that happened a few times. I was the smallest in my family, so I usually got whipped. My brothers are big guys, so I learned how to take up for myself. I don't fight fair. Have you figured that out about me? So here he is in this situation. What's he going to do? So David hears this and he sends for him. 32, David said to Saul, let no one lose heart on account of the Philistine. Your servant will go and fight him. Saul replied, you were not able to go out against the Philistine and fight him. You were only a boy, and he has been a fighting man from his youth. But David said to Saul, your servant has been keeping his father's sheep. When a lion or a bear came and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after it, struck it, rescued the sheep from its mouth. When it turned on me, I seized it by its hair, struck it and killed it. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear. This uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, because he has defied the armies of the living God. The Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine. Now I want you to think about something. We often get this story that he's a kid, that he's a little kid, and we have this picture you see right here, for instance. He's just a little kid. I love this image because a kid actually drew this. Isn't this cool? It's a cool image of looking at the picture here. But the image, the real image we get from Scripture is not that he's just a little boy. That's not what we see. The one who calls him a boy is Saul. Why does Saul call him a boy? Well, because he's already a contender for Saul. And Saul has already, if you go back a few chapters, he's already been told he will be deposed as king. He will not hold on to his kingdom. So he fears somebody coming who will unseat him. There's already stories about David. Go back to chapter 16. It's easy to miss this stuff. Chapter 16, verse 18. Saul has been tormented, and he's asked for somebody to come play music for him. And it's recommended that David be the one to come and attend to him, to play music to calm him. Verse 17 actually began. Saul says to one of his attendants, "Find someone who plays well and bring him to me." One of the servants answered, "I've seen a son of Jesse of Bethlehem who knows how to play the harp. He's a brave man and a warrior. He speaks well and is fine looking. And the Lord is with him." That's David. That's David already. David's already a man. David's already a warrior. David's already a guy who kills animals. Now, if there was a guy in this neighborhood who killed lions with his bare hands, do you think people would mess with him? I'm serious. If he killed a bear with his hands, would you mess with that guy? I wouldn't mess with that guy. I would leave his stuff alone, right? I mean, this man has a reputation already. To imagine that he's just a little kid, which is what a lot of people sort of picture, is not fair. That's not who David is. I want to suggest to you something different. And the text doesn't say this all, but I think that it's realistic to consider maybe David was left guarding the sheep because he was more of a man than his brothers. David wasn't afraid. David would go out and kill an animal. David wouldn't let the sheep be taken. David was not afraid. And so because of that, David is the one who's left to guard the sheep, not the brothers. The brothers are sent off to a war where they go out every day and yell, and that's all they do. They don't fight anybody. That's all they do. They go out and yell at the enemy. That's it. They have a war cry. Sounds pretty good. Doesn't really impress anybody. The Philistines certainly don't give up because of it. And so they're still here faced off in battle. And David comes out and he says, "Let me tell you something. I might be a shepherd, but I'm going to whip this guy because I won't tolerate this. We can't let him talk about God this way." Look at the boldness of him. Saul says to David in the end of 37, "Go and the Lord be with you." He's basically saying, "Good luck, son. Hope that works out. None of our people will do it." "Oh, you're going to do it? Okay, sure." So then Saul dressed David in his own tunic. He put a coat of armor on him and a bronze helmet on his head. David fastened on his sword over the tunic and tried walking around because he was not used to them. "I cannot go in these," he said to them, "because I'm not used to them." So he took them off. Now, sometimes I've had a picture when I was a kid drawn to me that David put on the armor and it was too big for him and he's like a little kid swallowed up in this armor. Doesn't say that right there, does it? Doesn't actually say that. He just says, "I'm not used to this. This is not how I fight. I like to be free. I like to be able to be quick." So that's what he says. He gets rid of the armor. Then he takes a staff in his hand. He chews 5 smooth stones from the stream, put them in the pouch of his shepherd's bag, and with his sling in his hand, approached the Philistine. Now, if you go out and look today at the slings that these guys had, it's very similar to what they still have today in that part of the world. And let me tell you something. Those slings, from the, they are about this tall. They're usually 4.5 or 5 feet long. And they put huge rocks in them, and they get back and they sling them like this and let them go, and it kills people when it hits them. They still have those. If you go out and look online, you can see they still use those slings. They're very dangerous. The police, when they go out to face those guys who have those slings, they wear armor to try to protect them and helmets for their heads. Why? Because it'll kill you. That's why. It's dangerous. I remember as a kid hearing this story, and it was kind of a joke. Oh yeah, all he has is a little sling, right? And the kids in Bible class make little slings, and they have a little pocket. And you go, "Yeah, David killed a giant with this." No, he didn't. Wasn't a paper sling. Wasn't a toy. It wasn't a funny thing. It was a big, serious device to kill people. It's dangerous. This is a real story. This happened. We have to be careful that we don't let people trivialize God's Word and make it something that it's not. And tell us a story that sounds like it's a little kid's story, when in fact, this is God saying, "I'm going to send a man out who has faith and he'll defeat the enemy." That's what this story is. That's what this is really about. It's about us, and what are we going to fear? Who are we going to be afraid of? Who's going to scare us? That's what this story is about. Meanwhile, the Philistine, with his shield bearer in front of him, kept coming closer to David. He looked David over and saw that he was only a boy. But didn't everybody look like a boy to Goliath? If you're 9 feet tall, who doesn't look like a boy? Ruddy and handsome, and he despised him. He said to David, "Am I a dog that you come at me with sticks?" Really? Is that what you're going to do? You got your little staff in your hand? You're going to come and whip me with a stick? Is that what's going to happen? And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. "Come here," he said, "and I'll give your flesh to the birds of the air and the beasts of the field." See, that's what they would do to their enemies. They would kill them, and they would leave their bodies in the field. They wouldn't bury them. And the animals would come and eat them. He's messing with him. David said to the Philistine, "You come against me with the sword and the spear and the javelin. But I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied." David says, I'm going to stand up against you. It's not going to turn out like you think. It's going to be different. You haven't faced me before, but I'm not the one you should fear. The one you should fear is God. He goes on in this story. He says, "This day the Lord will hand you over to me, and I'll strike you down, and I'll cut off your head. Today I will give your carcasses of the Philistines to the birds of the air and the beasts of the earth, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel." How do you think he said that? I don't think he said it timidly to you. I don't think he was shaking in fear when he said it. I think he said it, and he said it loud. And he said it so that his own people could hear it. Why? I think David is shaming some of his own people. Among them his brothers. Why? Because we won't let people talk about God this way. Who are we? What are we? Timid? Fearful? Scared? Is that who we are? David says that's not so. We're not going to live that way. As the Philistine moved closer to attack, David ran quickly toward the battle line to meet him. Reaching into his bag, taking out a stone, he slung it and struck the Philistine on the forehead. The stone sank into his forehead, and he fell face down on the ground. So David triumphed over the Philistine with a sling and a stone, without a sword in his hand. He struck down the Philistine and killed him. This is amazing when you stop and think about it. It's an incredible thing. But the message here that I love is what David says in 47. "All those gathered here will know that it is not by the sword or spear the Lord saves. For the battle is the Lord's, and he will give all of you into our hands." David understood something. The battle was not his, it was God's battle. And that God was going to be with him. Not because of how great he was, not because of how awesome he was, not because he was 9 feet tall, but because he was equal to the task, because God was with him. The battle belongs to the Lord. We just sang that. Do we believe that? Do we really believe that the battle belongs to God and that God's with us? And if we're fighting on his side, we don't have to be afraid? Do we really believe that? Do we live that way? A couple of things I love about David. Number one, he doesn't wait for the giant to get to him. He does what? It says he runs at him. He runs quickly toward the battle line. He goes out there anxious. He doesn't stay back and wait and think, okay, if I have to, I'll fight. That's not what he says. He doesn't say, I'll just wait here and we'll see if he actually comes. He doesn't do that. He takes his equipment, what little he has, and he goes out aggressively toward the enemy to fight him. I love that about him. If there's something to learn from this story, it's that. We often wait. We have our faith and we hold it. It's precious. We say, man, I go to church and I'm encouraged and I know God's Word. And you know, one day I'm going to get in a situation where I can use this. When's that coming? Has it happened yet? When is it going to happen? We sort of wait defensively and we sort of sit back and we say, I'm going to wait, and when I get back to the corner, well, then I'm really going to stand up for God. David says, man, what are you doing? Don't wait back there. Get your stuff and go out there and run at the enemy. I don't think we're running at the enemy. I don't think we are. The world we live in today, do you see us running at the enemy? I think we're sort of quiet and we hope we don't get noticed. We sort of hope that in the workplace and sometimes in our families and sometimes at Christmas, right? I hope nobody brings this up because, boy, it's a touchy subject. Oh, let's hope it doesn't come up and we have to say something about it. Man, what if I get backed in the corner? That's going to be scary. David would say, don't wait to get backed in the corner. Go out and fight. Go out and say the thing. Go out and do what God says. Go out and be who God calls us to be. That's what David would tell us. This man is going to be king over God's people. Why? Why is he going to be king? Because he might be the only one that believes that if the Lord's with him, he can win. You think that'd be everybody, but it's not. I wish it was every one of us, but it's not. And God's calling on us to do it. He's calling on us to be the person, to say the thing, to encourage someone, to challenge somebody, to take His word into a situation that's difficult. God's asking us to do that. And what are we doing? Well, a lot of times, I sort of think about the Israelites lining up for battle like we do church. We get together and we have a war cry together. Yeah, we're going to do it. We're going to beat you. We'll come out and fight. Not right now. We're saving up for when it's just the right situation, and then we'll fight. Really? It looks like we're in a stalemate. It looks like we're saying we're over here and you're over there. We'll practice our religion quietly where it doesn't offend you, and you leave us alone and let us do it. And that's enough freedom. What do y'all think? Is that enough? Do you think God would say that's bold enough? Do you think God would say that's where we're supposed to be? Do you think David would say, oh yeah, you guys are ready to fight? I think David would be saying something loud enough in front of us that we can hear him, and we're all thinking, why did I not do that? Man, I should be down there doing that. I think that we have to stop and consider. Go out and fight. The second thing, finish the job. This is the part of the story we don't talk about a lot. We don't usually tell all the kids about it, but it's in here, so I'm going to read it, okay? So, David ran in verse 51 and stood over him. He's laying there dead. Do you think the Philistines are making noises at this point? What do you think the Philistines are doing? What? They've got to be shocked. David goes over there. He took a hold of the Philistine sword. He drew it from the scabbard. How big is it? It must be huge. I bet it takes both of his hands to get it wielded. After he killed him, he cut off his head with the sword. Pretty serious. Goes a little farther than that. When the Philistines saw that their hero was dead, they turned and ran. Then the men of Israel and Judah surged forward with a shout, pursued the Philistines to the entrance of Gath, to the gates of Ekron. Their dead were strewn along the Sharim road to Gath and Ekron. When the Israelites returned from chasing the Philistines and killing them all, they plundered their camp. David took the Philistines' head, and he brought it to Jerusalem, and he put the Philistines' weapons in his own tent. It's a crazy thing, but he finishes the job. He says, I'm not just going to take this one thing. He didn't just throw a rock at him, and when it knocked him down for the moment, he says, okay, guys, we knocked him down. Let's run. He doesn't do that. They go aggressive. They take the battle to the enemy. They take it seriously. They work hard to do that. Sometimes, I'm going to tell you, sometimes we have a little victory in God's kingdom. We have a little victory. Somebody's baptized into Christ. We all rejoice. This is great. Somebody was baptized into Christ. Isn't that awesome? Yeah. Now, next one. Don't rejoice in your victory very long. There's more work to do. We have a lot to do. Don't let us get to a place where we say, look, we're finally meeting together. We're meeting in a school. That's great. Hey, there's more work to do. Hey, we helped some people at Thanksgiving. Yes, but there's more people to help. There's more to do, right? We took some children gifts at Christmas. That was wonderful. But there's more to do. Don't take your victory and settle yourself in feeling good about that for too long, because there's always more work to do. Finish the job. Keep working. Do all that we're called to do. Take the battle to the enemy and don't quit. Keep at it. Sometimes we quit too early. 55, as Saul watched David going out to meet the Philistine, he said to Abner, commander of the army, Abner, whose son is that young man? Abner replied, as surely as you live, O king, I don't know. The king said, find out whose young man this is. As soon as David returned from killing the Philistine, Abner took him and brought him before Saul. With David, listen, it's great, with David still holding the Philistine's head. Now, I'm just going to ask you something. If you were a young man and you killed the giant, would you keep your trophy with you? Yeah, that's what he does. He's walking around. He's got the giant's head under his arm like this. He's walking around town. People are like, what's that? Giant's head. Yeah, I cut it off. Hit him with a rock. It's pretty awesome. You think he told that story? Do you think he told that story? Come on. He was one of us, right? He was a person. Sure, he told that story. You bet he did. He's walking around with a giant's head in his hand. It's awesome. What's the point of this? The point of it is when we work with God and we do awesome things, we shouldn't be ashamed of it. We ought to be proud about who we are. We ought to be excited about what God's doing. Aren't you excited? Don't you see that in this area we are making a difference in the kingdom? Don't you see people coming? I see people coming back to church who hadn't been in a while. I see people getting established in a family where they care about God. I see people stepping out, going to home Bible studies, doing things they wouldn't do before. Don't you see that? Aren't you excited about it? There's a lot to be excited about, and yet we're not done. There's more to do yet. There's more to do in His kingdom. And the spirit that David has is a spirit we need to catch. 1 John 4. Great passage. 1 John 4:4. You, dear children, are from God and have overcome them, because the one who is in you is greater than the one who is in the world. Hey, if you take nothing else today, I want you to take this with you. He who is in you is greater. Greater than what? Greater than issues, greater than problems, greater than challenges, greater than whatever's facing you today. He's greater than that. Do you understand? I don't know what you're facing today. I don't know what your giant is. Maybe it's somebody at work that messes with you all the time. Maybe it's somebody that's trying to put you in a bad spot. Maybe that's your giant. Maybe it's a person. Maybe it's a relationship that hasn't gone the way you hoped it would. Maybe that's the giant. It's this relationship. And it's just defining everything else you are. And it's ruining your happy moments. I don't know. Maybe that's your giant. Face it. Deal with it. Don't run from it. We're so bad at running from things. I'm telling you, we are. We're a scared people. And it's easy for us to fear things and say, that's bigger than me. Addictions? People let addictions whip them all the time. Why? That's bigger than me. I've tried to beat it. I'm no good at it. It keeps beating me. It keeps whipping me. I'm no good at that thing. The fact is, God says, you're not by yourself, but if you got me, I'm greater than that. The one who is in you is greater. God says, I'm greater than those problems, greater than those issues, greater than those challenges. Where are we going to be in the future? I don't know. I don't even know where we'll meet. Okay? But we'll meet somewhere. Let me just tell you that, okay? And we'll let you know ahead of time where that is. That doesn't matter. It's just a building. That doesn't matter. If we one day build a big, beautiful building, can I tell you something? Buildings don't do ministry for you. Buildings don't help change people's lives. Buildings don't do that. God has put us here to do that. Do you get that? He who is in you is greater. It's God that makes us who we are and uses us to change other people's lives. We can't do that, though, timidly from the sidelines. We got to get in the game. We got to take the equipment we have, whatever that is. It might be feeble. It might be small. We might feel like we don't have all we need. You take that sling and you take a couple of smooth stones and you go out into battle. And even at that, have you thought about this? David picked up how many smooth stones? How many did he need? He had 4 too many. How many times do we imagine there's going to be this great day that's going to come, and all of a sudden it's going to be autographed for me, and God's going to hand it to me, and it's going to be my perfect success, and I'll be able to win at that. God will show it to me, right? How many times do we sit waiting for that, and those moments are just passing us by all the time? We've got more than we need to succeed. We've got more than we have to do the job. I'm telling you something. We are a blessed people. We are a talented people. We are a rich people. God can do through us everything He needs for us to do. He won't give us a task that's bigger than what He'll give us the ability to accomplish. I know that. I'm telling you ahead of time. Here's the message. What's your giant? What is it? Maybe it's your own issues. Maybe it's your sin. Maybe it's your life. Maybe there's something going on today that you know, I'm not going to be able to be who God wants me to be until I get past this thing. I want you to come down here today and say, I need help. I need prayer. I need strength. I need encouragement. It's whipping me. I'm standing on the sideline and I'm going out there and shouting at it every day, but I haven't won. I need help. If you're here today and you need help, we're here to help. We want to encourage and bless your life. We want to encourage you to come now while we stand and sing this song.
Oh, the bitter pain and sorrow.